Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Real quick, I'll introduce myself. My name is Katie Yates, and I am the Community Relations and Outreach Manager for the New England Clean Energy Connect. I recently joined NACEC because I wanted to play a more proactive role in sustainability. I consider myself a conservationist, and prior to this role, I worked for the National Park Service and most recently the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. We've been talking to Mainers about this project since 2017, but we know people still have questions, and it's even more complicated and because there's a lot of misinformation out there and people are angry at CMP and maybe don't understand the project itself, and it's confusing. And I know people want to know more and wanted to dig into some of the information, and I get it. So before it was too late, we thought we would try to answer some of your lingering questions. And to help with that, I have with me Adam Desrosiers, who has since been promoted, but was one of the top engineers on the clean energy corridor until very recently. And I'll do my best to help Adam, but he really knows this project inside out. So thank you for being here with me today, Adam.
My pleasure, Katie. I look forward to answering some of these questions and talking with you over the next hour here. So as you know, I'm not much of a public speaker or a polished politician. I'm born and raised here in Maine, a longtime engineer, project manager, and I've been working on this project a long time. I know it's easy for us to beat up on CMP. I see all the Facebook comments, but I think what we're here tonight to do is honestly answer questions that people still have, and give people the information they need to make their decision. So I believe in this project. I've been proud to work on it. I'm born and raised in Maine, as I said, a longtime sportsman. I've recreated in this area where the project's being constructed, and I take this project serious, and I take the impacts associated with the project very seriously. So I appreciate everybody coming to us with their questions, and like I said, we'll do our best to honestly answer them and hopefully allow you to make an honest decision based on real information.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal of the event is to answer questions that have been sent in to us over the last couple of weeks as plainly and directly as possible. And obviously it's nothing flashy. I'm in my home office. So this definitely isn't an infomercial or highly produced. And the questions that have been coming in are not really easy to answer, but I think that people do deserve answers to this. So Adam, what do you think? Should we just get started?
Yeah, let's jump into it.
Okay, good. So the first question that we have is from Stephanie from Bodenham. She asked on Facebook, I want you to be honest and tell me some of the negative impacts about the project. Everything has drawbacks, nothing is perfect. So if you say there isn't anything negative, then you can't be honest and I can't trust you. Honest people can and will admit the flaws. So we're already getting a hardball. Adam, do you want to go ahead and take this one?
Yeah, so I agree with you, Stephanie, and it's important to be honest. And that part of being honest is admitting your flaws. So if there was a way to build this transmission line without cutting down a single tree, I think we'd all sleep better at night and have much more support for this project. But if we're going to address our climate change concerns and reducing carbon in the state of Maine, this project is the single most the single biggest thing on the state's list right now to try to do so. The engineers who mapped out this project through and through worked tirelessly to try to minimize the impact on the Maine environment. That's why this project isn't a straight line through segment one. It zigzags around conservation areas, protected resources, and they spent a lot of time locating the corridor so that it would reduce as much impacts as possible. I've been part of this project and the team that has worked so hard to respect the environment. Is it perfect? No, but I'm proud of the work we've done and hopefully about what will mean for the environment in our decades to come.
Thank you, Adam. Stephanie also had another question. New Hampshire rejected the Northern Pass and their Supreme Court agreed, which is why it came to Maine. So why did New Hampshire reject the project if it was such a good deal for everybody?
So what I know about Northern Pass, I mean, Northern Pass was a project being developed by another utility in New England, Eversource at the time. we didn't have anything to do with it. It also is a project that was going through the White Mountain National Forest, which is a significant national feature in the New England area. So I don't really have any information about the benefits package or what New Hampshire was offering, but I'm an engineer, not a politician, as I said. So the benefits aren't really my expertise, but the reality is the state government here and the later Governor Mills, when she took office, negotiated quite a bit of benefits for Mainers as part of this project. And now Mainers are going to be getting some of the power from the NECEC project as part of the deal she negotiated. So.
Great, thank you, Adam. So Tony from Winslow asked on Facebook, how much benefit has the state of Maine or local governments been paid so far? So I think I can take this one. So thank you for your question, Tony. This year, NECEC will pay, and I've got some numbers written down here. So 4.5 million in taxes to local governments. So far, we've paid around 2.8 million of that. Some municipalities bill once a year, some bill twice a year. So that's why there's the difference. The full amount will be paid. Lewiston, for example, has been paid more than 1.5 million in taxes. Anson has received 136,000. Emden has received 49,000 of the 98,000 it's owed in taxes for the year. And Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about 5 million that's been contributed to an electric vehicle and heat pump fund.
Correct. Yep. Part of the package that was negotiated as part of the CPCN for the project. Those benefits have already started flowing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of numbers that I rattled off, but it's quite a bit that's already being injected into our state in a much needed time.
Yep.
Okay, so to our next question, Stephen from Falmouth asked via email, looks like, will a vegetative cover be maintained along the corridor? What kind of herbicides or pesticides will be used? Are they safe for fish and wildlife? Will the corridor be open to the public for recreational use, hunting, hiking, bird watching, snowmobiling, and four-wheeling?
Yeah, so a question we get all the time. I mean, when this project, the construction is complete, the corridor gets brought back to what we call a scrub shrub environment, where the vegetation is allowed to grow from anywhere to 5 to 10 feet in height and is maintained at that height throughout the safe operation of the transmission line that exists above it. CMP does use herbicides and pesticides. There is no herbicides or pesticides that will be used in segment 1 of the project. That was an agreement that was made during the permitting process. And they are safe on fish and wildlife. I mean, CMP does not broadcast spray herbicides and pesticides. It's local spot treatment of certain species that are capable of growing into what we call the conductor safety zone on these transmission lines. So it's not a broadcast spray over the entire right of way. It's very localized treatment. And will the corridor be open for public recreation such as hiking, hunting, bird watching, snowmobile, and four-wheeling? Absolutely. We've already been talking with a lot of the snowmobile and ATV clubs about locating a trail on the new corridor and then also on the expanded corridor. And CMP, I mean, as a whole, has over 2,000 miles of transmission line today that are used for these activities. And that won't change. Hunting, bird watching, hiking, all of those are allowed uses on CMP's owned transmission lines.
Great, thank you, Adam.
Yep.
So the next question, Julie from Deer Isle. As a commercial lobster boat captain, I am very concerned about offshore wind and our fragile ocean ecosystem. I'm not opposed to green energy, but believe strongly that there is a place and time for it, and our ocean is the wrong place at any time. How do you feel about offshore wind, and how will the project affect the pending offshore wind project? Will it tie into it? Will it utilize any part of the wind project? And how will this benefit Maine and our people? Thank you. Adam?
Yeah, well, hi, Julie, and thanks for the question. This project in general has no real relation to any offshore wind projects. This is a DC line from Quebec down into the Lewiston area where it ties into the regional ISO New England electrical grid. It is not capable of connecting any offshore wind to it, just due to the sheer voltage that this line operates at compared to the offshore wind turbines that you typically see. One of the benefits of this project is the network transmission upgrades that are being made to CMP's electrical transmission system as part of it, where as part of the project is over 200 million in network transmission upgrades that need to occur. And what that does is that provides capacity and headroom as far as transferring the power on that network transmission system for other renewable projects in the future, whether that's solar, wind. It does provide headroom and more benefits for those renewable projects in the future. So.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
George from Otisfield, how much money does CMP expect to earn per year from operating the power line? Will this be returned to the customers or absorbed by the parent company?
All right, well, thanks, George, for the question. I think one important distinction here too, is if folks aren't aware, is during the PUC process for the approval of this project, they required CMP to create a separate entity known as New England Clean Energy, NECEC Transmission LLC. That entity sits separated from CMP so that the ratepayers are not at risk for any penalties or losses associated with this project and any financial risk with this project. So any profit gained from this power line goes to NECEC, not CMP, and any potential liabilities that the project has go to NECEC and not CMP. So I think that's an important distinction here. And then the other piece of that is NECEC is paying to upgrade CMP's transmission system, as I mentioned in the previous question, with those network upgrades. So it's upgrades to the existing CMP assets that don't cost CMP ratepayers anything. And then all of NECEC is being paid for by Massachusetts. That's part of the contract that NECEC has for this project with Massachusetts. Every penny that's spent on this project is covered by Massachusetts and not CMP.
Great, thank you, Adam. There's a follow-up question from George. I think I'll take this one. If question 1 passes and the project is halted, how much is CMP obligated to pay? And will this be borne by CMP customers? So here again, this isn't actually a CMP project. It's a different company, the New England Clean Energy Connect, and I think that's an important distinction. Mainers have not paid a dime for this project, will not pay a dime if it's built, and they will not pay a dime if the project is stopped. Massachusetts has paid for this project. So that's why we always say it is a good deal for Maine, because Massachusetts is the one footing the bill. So let's see, Jim from Booth Bay Harbor asked, how many miles of state-owned land will the new extension run through? Adam, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, so of the 143 miles of transmission line, only 0.9 miles of it is on what we call the public lot or state-owned land. So just over 99% of it is on land that is owned by Central Maine Power and leased to NECEC as part of this project.
Great, thank you, Adam. Let's see here, Terrence from Yarmouth. How much profit will these foreign companies be making from this project? I see that question a lot that comes in through the hotline. If your answer is that it is proprietary information, I would then ask, how can the state of Maine negotiate a fair piece of the pie if the state doesn't know how big the pie is? Adam?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Terrence. I mean, I'm not a financial guy. I don't see all the numbers associated with the project. And to be completely frank, I really don't know what the profit margins are on this project. But I suppose to your question about how Mainers negotiate a fair price of the pie, I say the reality is Maine doesn't own the project, neither does Maine's government nor Maine ratepayers are invested in the project. Private companies are building it on privately owned land and paying the towns where it's located tax dollars for those assets that are located in that town. Governor Mills did negotiate, as I mentioned earlier, a deal to get some of this power for Maine. It's at a significantly reduced rate from what the ratepayers in Massachusetts are paying for the same energy that's being transmitted on the line. So Maine is getting a lot out of this project, and it's not costing Maine anything. And I know for some people that will never be enough. But I truly believe that Maine is getting a good deal here, and just the economic stimulus we've seen already in some of these communities associated with the construction that started has been a huge boost for those towns. So.
Actually, Adam, a good follow-up question to that is how many jobs have been created for the project?
Yeah, so currently we have over 400 Mainers working on the project today, and we are nowhere as close to the peak of construction at this point. The peak of construction would come sometime next spring when all of the substation upgrades get started. So as I said, over 400 Mainers are working every day right now on this project.
Great, thank you. So I have a long question here. It's from Kenneth from Newcastle. And so there's a lot packed into it. So I'm going to read them out and then try to answer all of them. Who will benefit from this project? Who will pay for this project? How is China involved? What is the amount of power going out of state? And if so, how much will CMP be pocketing? How many years will it take for Maine taxpayers to pay off your project? What will be the impact of the environment and what will be the impact on the environment and wildlife? Is Spain involved with China financially? Is Canada involved with China? With the price of fuel going up every few days and expect to continue to go up, how will Mainers benefit? And don't you charge a fuel charge? This is a lot of questions. Some of them I don't know, Adam. I might see if you know some of the answers to these, but who will benefit from Maine? We've kind of gone over this a little. Who will benefit from this project? We've gone over a little bit. Is Mainers will benefit, and Massachusetts customers will also benefit. And really, anyone who's breathing air in New England will also benefit from this project. Who will pay for it? Massachusetts energy consumers are paying for this project, not Mainers. How is China involved? I don't think China is. It's not something that has come to my attention thus far. Adam, do you know anything about that?
No, I have no awareness of any China involvement. So
how much power is going out of state and how much is CMP pocketing? So CMP isn't, right? The project is New England Clean Energy Connect, and we've kind of gone over how much is going out of state and staying here in Maine. Is Canada involved with China? Yeah, I don't know any of those political, socio-political things. It's not something that has been really involved in my experience here with this project. With the price of fuel going up, how will Mainers benefit? So the less dependent that we are on fossil fuels, the cost of fossil fuels will impact us less. So if you drive an electric car and charge it at one of the EV stations, the clean energy corridor is subsidizing that here in Maine, and the cost of gas won't affect you at all. So it's a good example of that. And what will be the impact on the environment and wildlife? So this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, just coming from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. There's so much that we've done to work very closely with the Department of Environmental Protection and MDFW, the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, to make sure that the project has had a limited impact on wildlife and natural resources. And in some cases, we're making improvements. So with accommodations such as the creation of deer travel corridors, replacing culverts to connect cold water fishery habitat, and also the conservation of 40,000 acres to offset any forest fragmentation. And then, of course, most experts agree that the worst thing that we could do for our natural resources in this state is ignore climate change. And this project is a big step in the right direction from my perspective. Adam, do you have anything to add to that? That was a long question.
No, I think you got them all there.
Great, thank you. So Jack from Rangeley asked, is it true no environmental impact study on effects of building the corridor? Is it true no environmental impact study has been done? I think is the question there. Adam?
Yeah, I mean, and really the short answer is it wasn't required. The Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Energy made a determination that it wasn't necessary for the impacts related to this project. But that doesn't go without saying that the environmental impacts associated with the project were not disregarded. They were studied and they were mitigated and reduced as much as possible to be able to construct the project. We had over a 2-year process in front of the DEP and the Army Corps, going through public hearings and comment sessions and exchanging information back and forth to really scrutinize the project. Through that process came a lot of changes that I believe made the project better. We introduced the tapered vegetation in segment 1. We added deer travel corridors and added full height vegetation at some significant stream crossings as part of the project. We removed the use of herbicides, like I mentioned earlier in segment 1. So all of those items were incorporated in the project through that very exhaustive permitting process that we went through with both the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. On top of that, dozens of Maine towns studied the environmental impacts of the project through their own municipal permitting process that we had to go through to get the local permits for the project. They looked at shoreland zoning, wetland impacts, stream crossings. So really, I mean, the summary here is that environmental impacts were considered and they were exhaustively studied, and we tried to reduce them as much as we possibly could to make the project that much better. But really, at the end of the day, the agencies didn't require the environmental impact statement to be completed.
Great, thanks, Adam. I think that's important to point out. That's a question we get frequently as well. Let's see here. Nope, here, Jerry from New York. Here we go. Sorry, I'm losing my place. Would the NECEC import lower the wholesale price enough to displace ISO and New England's nuclear units? Adam?
Yeah, so I mean, during the PUC process, the CPCN approval for the project, the impact on the New England grid was studied. Really, there was no clear determination what the impacts to individual generators was going to be. And really, the way I look at it is it's a supply and demand conversation. I mean, there's going to be increased supply into New England. So that's going to drive the price down because the demand isn't changing. So with that, it's really going to be up to the generators that bid into the market daily to decide if they're going to run at a reduced cost, or if they're going to close the doors and shut down. So that's the way I've always looked at it. It's going to be up to those generators to decide. But I think we all know that whenever you bring in more supply, it drives the price down. And that's exactly what this project's going to do to New England and to the rates for all the ratepayers, including customers in Maine. It's going to drive the wholesale price of energy down in New England and in Maine, which is going to result in lower energy prices for us.
Great, thank you, Adam. So our next question is from Jim. I have heard over and over the ads that claim CMP negotiated an illegal lease in order to get the truth. I subsequently asked the Natural Resources Council in an email, did CMP actually break the law? And our CM so far have chosen not to respond, yet their position is clear and the ads continue. So I can only assume they don't know. So I'm asking you, did CMP break any laws, Adam? What do you think?
Well, thanks, Jim. And that's a good question. I think we see the commercials all the time as it's always phrased as some secret backroom deal that was done. So I think the short answer is no. CMP did not break any laws, nor did anyone involved in the NECEC project break any laws. The issue the judge had was how the state of Maine and the Bureau of Public Lands handled the lease, and we had nothing to do with that. So this so-called backroom deal in 2014, when the Bureau of Public Lands entered into this lease with CMP for the corridor project, was administered exactly like it had administered leases for over 100 other leases that the BPL had issued. The Bureau evaluates its management plan for the area requested by the party seeking the lease for like a camp, a bridge, a logging road, a cell phone tower, a landing strip, or a transmission facility. And it assesses the current uses of the land in question and makes a determination of the land would be substantially altered. And that's the big thing there is if there's a substantial alteration in use. And really the case with this 9/10 of a mile crossing is that there was already timber harvesting occurring on this public lot, and there was already a transmission line located there. So the BPL made a determination that there was no substantial alteration in use, and thus granted the lease to CMP for the crossing. So I mean, to really sum it up, I don't see anything done illegally. The BPL did it the way they had done for hundreds of other leases, and they treated CMP just as they had for the other folks that had applied for leases that also had no substantial alteration in use.
Yeah, before I started on the project, I had heard some of this, and as soon as I learned that there was already a transmission line on that section of the public land, it made me rethink everything that I was hearing. So I think that's a really important.
It's an important point, and a lot of people don't realize that this public lot is already commercially logged, and there's already a transmission line there. So.
So what do you think? Do you have one more question? You think?
Absolutely.
Okay. So our last question is from Dick and Gardner, who asked on Facebook, why can't Maine consumers, albeit residential, commercial, or industrial, connect directly into this less expensive, green, renewable, and pollution-free power from Hydro-Quebec along its journey through Maine and into Massachusetts? Is there a Maine law or statute that prohibits its use in Maine? Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, it's important to understand how the New England grid works. It's like, it's basically a bunch of streams that are flowing and rivers pouring into a lake. And that lake is distributing the power through other streams and rivers to people's homes. The question here is how much of that lake is filled by electricity that came from clean renewable sources, and how much of that lake is filled by electricity from fossil fuel plants. So Mainers already were going to receive some of the clean electricity before, but then last summer, the Governor Mills negotiated a deal with Hydro-Quebec to buy electricity from NECEC for Mainers at a hugely discounted rate. So it's going to be enough energy to supply 70,000 homes or 10,000 businesses, and it'll be at 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour compared to the 6 cents per kilowatt hour that Massachusetts is paying. And with all that discounted clean electricity in the mix now, it will actually lower electricity rates for all Mainers, like I talked about earlier with the market. So in the end, Maine consumers will be getting electricity from the Clean Energy Connect project, but it's not going to be costing them anything to construct it.
That's great. Thank you, Adam. Those are all the questions that we have. Is there anything else that you wanted to add while you had a minute to talk to people?
I don't have anything else. No, I think those are a lot of great questions and really hit on a lot of the big issues you see right now coming up to the referendum and where we're at with the misinformation that I always talk about on this project. I think a lot of those questions point directly to some of the misconceptions out there, and it was great to get an opportunity to answer them and provide honest information about the truth about the project.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating to hear the misinformation. And so when I have an opportunity to talk to people and I tell them some of the things that I know about the project, they say, well, how come you're not saying that in a more public venue? And we are. So this was great. I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to chat with you and ask some of these questions and answer some of them. And I wanted to thank everyone who's watching the stream at home and those who sent in questions to us. And if you want to get more information, I really encourage everybody who still thinks they have some lingering questions still, go to our website, which is necleanenergyconnect.org, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also call us toll free at 866-676-3232 if you have any additional questions. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.